In North Carolina, Jeffrey is on the roof of a McDonald's in the middle of the night. Using some tools, he manages to find a weak spot and break into the building. The next morning, the manager and 2 employees arrive and Jeffrey corners them with a gun. He talks very kindly to them and promises nobody will get hurt. After making them put on their coats, he takes them to the freezer. The manager doesn't have a coat and he's very cold, so Jeffrey gives him his. Then he takes all the money from the safe and runs away while avoiding the incoming police car. This all started 2 years ago. Jeffrey is a divorced Army veteran and he's struggling to provide for his 3 kids. On Becky's birthday, he gives her some of his old toys and she clearly doesn't like them. Jeffrey tells his best friend and fellow veteran Steve that he can't get a regular job because his Army skills aren't useful for everyday stuff. However, Steve points out that Jeffrey has an amazing power of observation that allows him to see stuff that other people don't. Later at a McDonald's, Jeffrey leaves the kids with their mother Talana and tries to promise he'll do better, but Talana doesn't believe in him anymore. After the family leaves, Jeffrey is disappointed to discover that Becky left her gift in his car. Then he stares at a repairman climbing on top of the McDonald's building and gets an idea. He goes inside and in just a couple of minutes, learns the employees' routines and all the details of how the business works. In the following years, Jeffrey robs 45 McDonald's using the same method. He cuts a hole in the roof to break in. Soon he becomes infamous for his crimes and the media nicknames him Roofman. They also call him terrorizing, yet the robbed employees speak well of him. There's a sketch of him, but since he always wears a mask, they only know their height and build. Now Jeffrey can have a better life. He gets a nicer TV and great things for Becky's birthday, like a band, a fancy cake, and the bicycle she always wanted. All these changes and Roofman's description make Steve suspicious. Unfortunately, Becky's birthday party is interrupted by the arrival of the police, so a desperate Jeffrey starts running away. He jumps through all his neighbors' gardens and reaches the hill, only to trip and roll down. This allows the cops to catch him while Becky watches. After a quick trial, Jeffrey gets a sentence of 15 years. In prison, Jeffrey calls Becky and gets to say a few words, only to hear that Talana already has a new boyfriend. Talana refuses to talk to him and forces Becky to hang up, so Jeffrey never gets to talk to his kids again. He ends up tearing off Talana's face from the family picture he brought. Eventually Jeffrey starts working at the prison's shops and learns all the details of the workers' routines, especially the delivery truck. Once he has a plan in mind, he continues to work while making all the pieces he'll need to escape, like cutting a wooden board, wielding some metal pieces, and modifying some clothes. One day, Jeffrey waits until the driver is back in the truck cabin and rushes to get his wooden board. He sneaks under the truck, inserts the board into the frame, and hides behind it. When the truck leaves the building, a guard uses a mirror to check under it, but Jeffrey is well hidden so he isn't seen and successfully escapes. After a few hours on the dirty road, the driver stops to relieve himself. Jeffrey uses the chance to come out and carefully sneak around the vehicle so he can run into the woods. There he gets rid of the prison jumpsuit, revealing other clothes underneath. He makes it to another road and hitchhikes a ride back to town. Outside his house, he watches Becky ride her bicycle, but he doesn't dare to approach her because he knows the cops will come. In the evening, Jeffrey calls Steve to ask for help to get out of the country. Steve tells him he's all over the news and to stay low for now. They can talk again in a month. At that moment, a police car stops nearby and Jeffrey looks around for ideas. There's a toy shop across the street, so he rushes inside with a shopping cart, pretending to be a client. After wandering for a while fake shopping, Jeffrey goes to the bathroom. By stepping on a toilet, he manages to reach the ceiling and hide behind a panel. A cop enters the bathroom to look for him but doesn't see him. Once the store closes, Jeffrey comes down into the office. He checks the security cameras to confirm he's alone and enters the main area, quickly noticing the position of the cameras. Jeffrey carefully sneaks around to avoid being recorded and uses a tool to reach some jars of baby food that he then eats in the office. He also watches the news to follow the police operation that is looking for him and gets offended when they say he's violent. Then he returns to the ceiling and spends the whole day there. The following evening, Jeffrey finds the manual for the security system and manages to pause the recording. Now he can run around the store all he wants. After getting tons of candy, he discovers that there's an empty space behind the bicycle display, so he cleans it before bringing some mattresses and food to make it his home. As days pass, Jeffrey continues to live in the toy store. He sleeps during the day while everyone is shopping without suspicion, and he comes out at night to entertain himself with the toys. Jeffrey gets clean clothes from the donation box and awkwardly washes his body in the bathroom. By watching the news, he keeps up with his case and learns that the police haven't given up on finding him yet. One night, Jeffrey discovers that the shop also sells baby monitors, so he installs them all over the shop and the office to spy on the employees. He watches how Lee asks her boss Mitch to have every other weekend off, explaining that she got divorced a few months ago and the custody situation is complicated. Sadly, Mitch turns her down and Jeffrey feels awful for her. Thanks to the baby monitor, Jeffrey learns Mitch's password and later uses it to access the shop's system so he can modify Lee's schedule. Eventually, the media and the cops lose all interest in Jeffrey, so he finally dares to come out to watch the fireworks on the 4th of July. The next day, he modifies the lock on the emergency exit so he can come in and out at will. Riding one of the shop's bicycles, he finds a payphone and tries to call Steve. His girlfriend Michelle answers and says that Steve left for Afghanistan on a 6-month contract, so he won't come back until December. Jeffrey leaves a message for him in code before calling his home, but he doesn't dare to talk because he can hear Becky having fun with her stepfather. Talana is suspicious of the silence and guesses it's Jeffrey, so she asks him not to call again or she'll tell the cops. Jeffrey has a breakdown after hanging up. That night, Jeffrey puts up a calendar to count the days until Steve returns. He's so frustrated that he starts hitting the toys. Sometime later, Jeffrey hears Mitch accuse an employee of stealing candy, pointing at his big belly as proof. Lee immediately comes to her coworker's defense while Jeffrey feels bad for getting the guy in trouble. That evening, he puts back all the candy he took. The next day, Lee tells Mitch about a charity brunch at her church, hoping he could donate something for the toy drive. Mitch refuses to give away anything from the shop for free, not even the returns that they can't sell. After Lee leaves, Mitch throws her flyer in the trash. Feeling bad for Lee, Jeffrey decides to take some toys to the church. He tries to leave the bag outside, but he's seen by a member of the community who forces him to stay for the whole service. Jeffrey can't stop staring at Lee while she sings with the choir. Afterward, Jeffrey decides to stay for the charity brunch just for the food, since he's been eating nothing but baby food and candy. The locals don't recognize him, so he pretends he's new in town and introduces himself as John. He even gets to chat with Lee, who is very impressed by his donation. When they ask about his life, he pretends he does classified work for the government so he can't talk about it. They invite him to come to more church events and he's so lonely that he agrees. Later, Jeffrey tries to brush his teeth, but they hurt a lot because of all the candy he's been eating. He steals some video games from the toy shop and pawns them to get money for the dentist, who finds 14 cavities. Jeffrey also gets some good adult clothes so he can stop wearing teenage stuff with cartoons. During the next church event, Jeffrey manages to charm all the ladies. A woman that used to work as a cop is surprised to hear that this little town has an intelligence unit, so Jeffrey convinces her that they're secretly everywhere and continues to avoid questions by claiming that the answers are classified. After the event, Lee wonders if Jeffrey likes men and that's why he felt like one of the girls. Jeffrey assures her that he isn't, so she asks him out. The duo goes to the park for their first date and Jeffrey feels awkward when he hears that Lee's ex is called Jeffrey too. They still have a great time and end up going to Lee's home to get naughty. After they're done, Lee tells him about her daughters and Jeffrey says he'd love to meet them. During the weekend, Jeffrey visits Lee and gets to meet her daughters, although Lee introduces him as a friend from church since this is still new. He gives Dee some merchandise of her favorite video game and she's so happy that she thanks him with a hug. However, when he tries to gift Lindsay some music, she turns it down and goes to her room. Jeffrey spends the rest of the evening playing with Dee, which helps him feel like a father again. Weeks pass and Jeffrey continues to date Lee. He attends all the church events and tries to connect with the girls. He does well with Dee, but Lindsay keeps ignoring him. They even spend Halloween together. To afford all their outings, he steals and resells more video games. The fear of being recognized never leaves, so Jeffrey asks Lee if they could start a new life elsewhere. Lee refuses, explaining that her life is there. One night, Jeffrey is washing up in the bathroom when he suddenly hears a voice. To his shock, Mitch has stayed in the shop after hours. His clothes are hanging in the corridor, so he waits until Mitch is in the office and runs out to recover them. Unfortunately, Mitch sees him and freaks out, quickly running to hide. Jeffrey pretends he's escaping by activating the back door alarm, but he runs back to his hideout just in time. Mitch calls the police and soon the officers are searching the shop. They stay there for several hours and they don't find Jeffrey, however they finally notice that the security cameras haven't been recording. Mitch tells them that they've been missing a lot of video games and promises to get better security. Soon the media covers the story, but this doesn't stop Jeffrey from meeting with Lee and going to church events. During the Thanksgiving dinner, Lee's friends are worried about her safety because of the toy shop robber and say she should quit. Jeffrey insists that the robber didn't seem dangerous but also agrees that Lee should quit, which some people find contradictory. Lee thinks that a person being so desperate to wash in a shop bathroom is actually a sad situation and they shouldn't be making jokes about it. Lindsay snaps and calls her mother out for spending more time at work than with her family, and after a short argument, she leaves. The next day, Jeffrey calls Steve. Michelle picks up the call again and gives him Steve's message. He should visit them next Sunday to arrange things. Afterward, Jeffrey convinces Lee and Lindsay to apologize to each other, but they end up arguing again. Since Lindsay is still angry that she can never leave the house because Lee won't drive her, Jeffrey agrees to teach the girl how to drive and they go to get her a car. During the testing run, Jeffrey impresses the girls by doing some crazy moves while driving very fast, but Lee is terrified. Then he convinces the salesman to let Lindsay drive by paying well and in cash. Lindsay is very nervous but manages to get them back in one piece. On Sunday, Jeffrey finally reunites with Steve, who asks if his friend has stayed hidden and avoided contact with anyone. Jeffrey lies and says he has. Michelle puts a wig on Jeffrey for a picture so they can make a new passport, and Steve creates a whole fake backstory for him under a new name. To get Jeffrey out of the country they'll need $50,000, which he obviously doesn't have yet. He promises he'll get it anyway. Afterward, Jeffrey drives to his usual pawn shop and climbs on the roof to break in with his old methods. However, he miscalculates and falls into the neighboring store. He's so desperate that he breaks the wall to reach the pawn shop, but this activates the alarm. Jeffrey grabs a gun and a police bulletproof vest before using a statue to break the front door so he can escape. Later at the toy shop, Jeffrey installs some panels to cover his hiding spot. Then he listens to Mitch talk to the employees about the details of the upcoming 2 weeks. The holiday season is when the store gets the most clients and the most money. Security will be improved, they'll be opening early and closing late. This includes Christmas Eve, so Mitch puts up a new schedule that means lots of extra shifts for everyone. That night, Jeffrey modifies the schedule so Lee won't be in the store on the day of his plan. The next day, Jeffrey takes a big Christmas tree plus lots of decorations and gifts to Lee's house before going to church with the whole family. While watching Lee sing, he can't help but cry. The following morning, Jeffrey puts on his mask and comes out with his gun in hand to rob the toy shop. While he ties up all the employees, the security guard tries to reach for his weapon, so Jeffrey has to knock him out. The sight of blood makes everyone freak out. Then Jeffrey makes Mitch open the safe and asks him to remove the ink bomb from the bills. The bomb sprays ink all over Mitch's face and Jeffrey grabs the money bag safely. On his way out, an employee calls Jeffrey out for hurting the guard and says he needs an ambulance. Jeffrey decides to stay to call 911, and this delay ends up with Lee arriving for her shift. She runs away in panic, so Jeffrey escapes through the back door instead. The police arrive quickly and save the guard just in time. This time the investigation is more thorough, so the cops find Jeffrey's hiding spot in the shop. Lee is interrogated and explains she couldn't tell who it was because of the mask. Meanwhile, Jeffrey pays Steve for all the fake documents and plane tickets to leave tomorrow for Venezuela. Steve asks about the robbery he saw on TV and Jeffrey pretends he knows nothing. Michelle puts the wig on him while Steve explains he needs to get rid of any records he may have left behind. Jeffrey has no choice but to break into the dentist's office and burn it down. The next day, Jeffrey is driving to the airport when he gets a call from Lee. After lots of hesitation, he pulls over to answer. Lee invites him to her Christmas dinner and Jeffrey cries as he agrees to go. Moments later, Jeffrey shows up at Lee's home with some gifts. However, this turns out to be a trap and soon the police are surrounding him to arrest him. In the police car, Lee cries with guilt. Jeffrey is sent back to prison with a sentence of 32 years. He puts a picture of Lee's family next to his old one and has lots of time to think about all the pain and damage he's caused with his plans. Jeffrey starts attending a support group in prison and finally gets to call Becky again. The other prisoners want to know if he'll escape again, but Jeffrey has come to terms with his punishment. One day Lee visits him, so Jeffrey uses the chance to apologize. Lee admits she used to be angry, but now she sees their time together as an adventure she's grateful for. She apologizes for her part in his arrest and they hug. This is based on the real story of Jeffrey Manchester, who tried to escape 2 more times in 2009 and 2017. The real Late has remarried and recently visited him for the first time since the incident. Jeffrey will be eligible for parole in 2036 and works as the prison librarian. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.